6:29, so you got about a minute left.
I would like to welcome everyone to the Henry County Zoning Advisory Board meeting, May the 14th, 2020. This meeting is being held via video conference and is streaming live at henrycounty.ga.org, Facebook, and Spectrum Channel 180 for public viewing. If you wish to participate in the conference, please provide your name, phone number, Zoom user ID, and the case you wish to speak on. Please list if you wish to speak in favor or opposition of a case. A total of 10 minutes will be allowed for anyone wishing to speak in favor of a case, beginning with the applicant, and 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. We will now have the invocation and pledge by Ms. Susan King.
Good evening, everyone. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please bow your heads for a moment of prayer. Gracious God and Heavenly Father, we thank you for your presence in our lives, for being with us during this very critical time. We ask for wisdom and clarity in all of the presentations tonight, that the technology component of this meeting will go off without any hitches. And we just ask for healing for our county and for our country, and that you would give all of our leaders wisdom in making all of their decisions as we move forward. It is in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ I pray. Amen.
Amen. This meeting is now called to order. Do I have a motion for acceptance of the agenda?
Mr. Risher? On there, Mr. Carmichael. All right, go ahead, Mr. Carmichael.
I make a motion that we accept the agenda.
Okay, do I have a second?
Mr. Risher? Okay. Motion by Mr. Carmichael, second by Mr. Risher.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Okay. Do we have any comments for staff, from staff?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I want to take this time to introduce publicly at our very first public hearing since January, our brand new planning and zoning director, who is also our host tonight, Mr. Toussaint Kirk. So we just want to make you welcome, Mr. Kirk.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Mr. Toussaint. Any additional comments from staff? Okay.
No, sir.
If not, we'd like to call the first case, please.
BR 2001, Chantel Reed of McDonough, Georgia, requests a variance from development standards for property located at 540 Chambers Road in land lot 173 of the 6th district. The property consists of 7.08 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a reduction of the driveway requirements. This is District 2, and the staff report is presented by Mr. Kenta Lanham, Planner 1.
Good evening, Chair and board members. The variance request in front of you is for property located at 540 Chambers Road, as highlighted on the aerial map in your exhibit books. The applicant is proposing to transition the subject property from a single-family residence to a campground. This is a site located on Chambers Road between Highway 81 and Mount Carmel Road. And the current zoning of the property is RA, Residential Agricultural. Chapter 4, Section 40317 of the ULDC describes the standards for recreational vehicle parks and campgrounds. The section requires a minimum driveway width of no less than 28 feet from edge to edge. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the driveway requirements for a campground from 28 feet to 20 feet. From the site plan, we see that a portion of the existing gravel driveway is within the 50-foot undisturbed buffer around Birch Creek. That would be this dotted line here, with the driveway here. A portion of the proposed driveway will also encroach into this buffer. Here are some images taken from Chambers Road looking at the areas around the driveway. With these images in mind, we can see the topography of the area around the driveway entrance. The image at the bottom right shows the topography of the south side of the driveway. The bottom left image shows the Chambers Road looking north. And the top image shows the topography to the north of the existing driveway. Again, referencing the bottom right image, we see the topography of the south side of the driveway opposite the creek, which appears to be able to accommodate a wider driveway. A driveway width of 20 feet will prevent two-way traffic of recreational vehicles, as 2 units would be unable to pass, resulting in a stacking of vehicles and unnecessary to neighborhood traffic. The requirement for 28 feet is to remedy this and to provide ample space for 2 passing recreational vehicles. Given this information, staff recommends denial for the variance request. And I would be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay. Does the board have questions for staff?
Not at the moment.
Okay. I think Mr. Carmichael, did you have questions? It looked like you're muted.
I'm sorry. There you go.
Okay, yes, I have a question.
Okay.
Are the, is this case governed by emergency regulations in terms of the width of the driveway?
The International Fire Code requires a fire access driveway of no less than 20 feet, which is, I believe, why the applicant is requesting the reduction to 20 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions for staff? Mr. Richard?
Oh, sorry.
Or any contact with the fire department, and have they looked at the proposed driveway?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the first portion of your question?
I asked if there had been any communication with the fire department, and if they had given any response in writing as to whether this driveway was satisfactory for their purposes.
I believe the applicant has been in contact with the fire department, but I think as for further information as to the written communication and if fire approved it, I would ask that the applicant answer that question.
Okay, so I spoke with the fire chief and they advised that a 20-foot will be applicable to the community that they advised. And according to the NFPA, which is the guidelines that the fire department is utilizing, they advise that a 20-foot is advised for them to go in and out.
Okay, I'm assuming that was the applicant. If you will, hold off for 1 second, please. Any additional questions for staff? Okay.
Yes,
if
I have
not-
one other question.
Okay, Mr. Richard.
The platforms upon which these large, I guess you'd call them dome structures are placed, they appear to meet ADA standards with the ramps and so forth, but was there any requirements for building permits to build these platforms?
I believe we would require permits. The fire department would require permits, building permits. As to whether or not the applicant has received those permits, I am not sure.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions for staff?
I'm
Okay,
not sure. I do.
Okay,
I'm not sure if Kenta knows the answer to this question. In terms of a business operating, if this is going to be a campground, that's the ultimate goal for the property. This would be a for-profit business, would require a business license, correct?
A business license would be required, correct?
Do you know if the applicant has looked at that piece
Um,
yet?
Yes, I believe the applicant is in the process of receiving the business license, but the need for a variance for the driveway was brought about from the application process.
Do you know if code enforcement was ever called in
I-
regards to this property at all?
I do not know that answer.
Okay. Thank you.
okay. Any additional questions for staff? Okay, if not, we'd like the applicant to come forward, please. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Chantel Reed. The address is 540 Chambers Road.
Okay, Ms. Reed, we're allotting 10 minutes to present this case along with anyone wishing to speak in favor of your case. So move forward. Do you have anything additional that you would like to add to this case?
In reference to the widening of the roads, or do you guys have questions that I may be able to answer? How do you guys want me to go about it?
Okay. Does the board have questions for the applicant? Okay. All right. If there is no additional questions, do we have anyone wishing to speak in favor of this case?
We did not receive any questions prior to the meeting, and I have just asked everyone in the waiting room, did they have any, did they want to speak for or against this case, and no one has responded.
If it would please the board, I'm the civil engineer for Miss Reed and her husband on this project. We provided a written memorandum today that I believe helps address a number of the issues and concerns, and I would love to be able to discuss that with the board.
Okay, you can go ahead and move forward with that.
All right, so my name is Wayne Smith. I'm the owner of DW Smith Design Group located in McDonough, Georgia. I've been working with Miss Reed and her husband on this project for approximately a year now. And the staff has been very helpful. And one of the things that we appreciate is that early on, the staff tried to find, if you will, find a home for this project in our zoning ordinance. Obviously, you can't contemplate every possible potential use, but particularly Mr. Stacy Jordan was very helpful in assigning this as a campground under the code section 4.03.17. It's that section which is not called campgrounds, it's called recreational vehicle parks, is where I think the issue that we're asking the variance for tonight comes into play. Obviously, recreational vehicles are large vehicles, not highly maneuverable. And so it's understandable why you would require a 14-foot wide internal, 14-foot wide lane, 28-foot wide internal street for those type vehicles. Typically, RV parks are large in scope. They house quite a large number of recreational vehicles at the same time. So there would be the potential for a lot of traffic coming in and out. We believe the site conditions here are very, very different from a traditional RV park in that there are only a maximum of 8 campsites or dome tents that will be allowed on this property. And as such, the folks that come and the guests there, we anticipate they will all be driving their personal vehicles and not large, expansive recreational vehicles. Given the fact that the other thing is that the setting that the owners are trying to establish here is one of getting away, being out in a natural setting, the serenity and the quiet and the peacefulness that's associated with that. They've already alluded to the fact that we are immediately adjacent to the floodplain of Birch Creek. And so there are very real environmental and construction issues that would be associated with building a road this wide, not to mention the sheer expense of it. But our request for the variance is because we believe we are providing adequate access for the customers, for the patrons of this proposed campground, and yet we're certainly meeting or exceeding all of the fire code requirements for access that would help protect the personal safety, not only of the property, but of all the patrons as well.
Okay. Does the board have questions for the applicant? Or any additional questions for the applicant?
I do.
Okay.
Ms. Reed, do you know, has any of the property owners on either side of this area alerted code enforcement for any reason about the property and what's going on there?
We did not in general. When we originally started construction in the property, when woods were starting to drop, code enforcement were called out to the property, saying that the neighbor thought we were selling wood structures on the property, which was not the case. So in terms of code enforcement going out for that, then yes, but otherwise anything different, no.
Were you cited? I guess then you were not cited for that, or you were cited for that?
No, we're not cited at all because there is no selling of any wood on the property.
Okay, so has code enforcement made any subsequent visits to the property regarding the structures that are there?
No, when we started the structures there, we applied for to do we had a different what we call it, like yeah, we got a permit issued to do the structures, and they were all approved. The permits were approved, and when they came out, they told us to stop all work order until everything has been submitted.
As far as the variance issue, correct?
Everything has to be sent in, including this variance issue. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and when you say everything, what else is everything?
Once the site plan has been submitted to the department and everybody looks at it, But this is the one area that needs to be submitted along with the entire site plan.
And I can't recall if I asked this question previously. Do you have any documentation from the fire department that they are in fact okay with what you want to do?
Yes, I have, and I sent it over earlier, but I have the documentation from the meetings that we've had with the fire chief. And in his notes, he made reference to just having a 20-foot fire access road based on his notes that we had.
Does the planning office have a copy of that?
They should have a copy because that was a part of the planning and zoning meetings that we had, and the fire department were there, so everybody got a copy of those.
Does anyone in the planning office have a copy of those?
I myself have not seen any copies. I do know that the applicant has been in this process for, as I believe Wayne said, about a year now. I have not seen any correspondence between the applicant and the fire department, but I do know that there were several meetings held before I joined the planning and zoning team. As far as copies,
We have the notes from the fire department dating 5/14/19, which the planning and zoning should able to pull that copy for the records.
Okay. Any additional questions, Ms. King?
Not at the moment, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Reed, I have a question. Now you say you have notes from the fire department. What do those notes indicate from the fire department?
It just indicates what their requirements are. It indicates a 20-foot access road to be drafted, meeting all fire codes. That's what is stated on that paper. And also they've given, according to the NFP that the fire department follows in their book, they give me a printout to show what the requirements are according to the fire department code that stipulates for emergency situation is 20 foot, and just for any commercial property is 18 foot, but then the fire department says we need to go by the 20-foot one. So I have those documentation, and if you guys want, I could forward that to you guys if that be, if you need those documentation.
No, I was just concerned with what their indication was. Any additional questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I have one. As far as if you have one recreational vehicle coming out and one coming in, what's the protocol? I'm just thinking of that road, there's very short sight distance and people kind of whip around there. You know, has the DOT been involved with any conversations?
As Wayne highlighted earlier, it's not a recreational vehicle campground. So we're not getting that type of people that's going to come to camp on our camping facility because there's no areas for them to hook up, drain, anything to that. And that's one of the biggest concerns that we're having is that although we're classified as a recreational vehicle park, we are not. And so we're not going to get that traffic in terms of trailers or any RV to that type.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I add something?
Yeah.
Okay, so we had talked a lot about campground versus RV park. And let me just say that the section of the code that addresses campground is our section table 2.03.03, and it makes reference to this section for administration, which is also for RV parks. We are talking about the correct section of the code. And I understand that 28 feet is a comfortable width for two RVs to meet each other and pass and so forth. But I also want to say for the record that a typical non-residential driveway is required to be 26.
So one of the concerns that I have as well, because the main road on Chambers Road is right now is a 22 foot. That's the size of that main street right there off Chambers Road. It's 22 foot. So just imagine coming off it's a 22 foot road, main road, going on to a 28 foot. It's just not logical. So even if a trailer or a truck that can pass on a 24 foot or 22 foot road on that main road on Chambers Road, then having that big of a road in that campground is not practical at all.
And Mr. Chair, if you'd like me to respond, I certainly can.
You can if you like, Stacey. It's not a necessity.
Okay, let me just say very briefly that what we haven't talked about are the requirements of the Henry County Department of Transportation. And so this property is being transitioned from a single family use to a commercial use, or a non-residential use. And as such, the roadway is going to have to be improved to meet the standards for its functional classification. So if Chambers Road is substandard along the frontage of the subject property, it's going to have to be widened. And also, if there's inadequate right-of-way will be required. And also, a deceleration lane will be required and so forth. There are certain standards that will be required for this subject property when it's transitioning from a single family use to a non-residential use.
Okay.
And we're quite aware of that. We have been, this is not our first meetings that we've had. We've had multiple meetings with different council members. And the DOT and Wayne and I, we've sat down and developed a plan on how we're going to get, diesel lane address and stuff and so forth. The biggest issue that we need to address here is not entering the property, is having adequate roadways for the property. But at the same time, one of the things that we have to take into consideration as well, and other members, is we're going to widening that road and having that creek right there is going to cause a lot of environmental impact. And what I want to do is to reduce that impact. So if it doesn't need that 28-foot road there to overstep on that creek, then that's going to be the biggest issue right there.
Okay. Does the board have additional questions for the applicant?
Maybe, but I do have a comment. I think aside from the variance request, I think there are concerns about the ultimate intention, the future use of the property, which is for commercial use. Correct? For the applicant, that's correct. This is going to be, you're going to use this. So if you could explain to the board a little more in depth about what these, I think you call them geodomes, are, and what your ultimate vision for the use of that property is going forward. I think that that's important to understand, aside from the road issue, the water issue, that everyone needs to understand. And then I would ask additionally, did you meet with, I know you said you met with a lot of people, did you meet with any of the neighbors in the area regarding your plans for the property?
Yes, I've met with neighbors in regards to that. Most of the neighbors do think the idea is a great idea in terms of what, and initially when we purchased this property, this is pretty much, it wasn't as commercialized, but that's what the previous owner did. Mostly it's just for camping experiences.
So you say there was camping there previously?
Yes, but not on a commercial level like how we're doing right now. Okay,
so if you would just take a few minutes to explain to the board what your plans for the property are in terms of those geodomes and using it as a campground.
Okay, so pretty much the initial idea about this campground is to create a safe haven for individuals to be fully immersed in nature. too often we see so many campgrounds only offering like RV campsite against traditional camping. And what I wanted to create a space where individuals can feel safe. They get opportunity to indulge in a wide variety of outdoor activities that will not only bring an enjoyable experience, but a memorable one. We wanted people to move away from the traditional hotel experience and have, with having children, there is little to do in a hotel. And we wanted the opportunity to get people right from the city and kind of engulfing back into nature. We developed these geodesic domes, and these geodesic domes are pretty much they're structures. There are semi-circle structures. I believe some of you guys have seen them before. They're called geodesic or geodesic domes. And what these domes are going to do is it's just like a semi-tent. It's just more of a semi-permanent versus a tent that you break down. But the geodesic domes, we have 8 domes that's going to be on the property that will be utilized for individuals to camping and to get that experience out in the nature. It is not it's not for an RV parking. No, we're not offering RV parking, any RV hookup. People will just be coming there to just experience the geodesic domes.
And to confirm, those domes are already up. Those have already been constructed, correct?
That's correct.
And do you have a letter, documentation from any of the neighbors that you did meet with saying that yes, they are okay with having this in the neighborhood?
No, I don't have any documentations at all.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions for the applicant? Okay, at this time, we'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. And Tucson, I don't think we have anyone listed, so.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any additional questions for the applicant or staff?
I have a question for staff.
Okay.
Kenta, if you could please just repeat and go over one final time why you're recommending denial of this case, of this request.
Okay.
Explain.
With variances, certain criteria is to be met. Some of those may be any conditions that may pertain to the property that would prevent use of the property. Also, if there's a criteria stating that if the variance is approved, that it would confer special, let me see, special privileges that are denied to other property owners of similar districts in which the applicant's property is located. We also have criteria that the requested variance will be in harmony with the purpose and intent of this chapter and will not be injurious to the neighborhood or the general public. So there are several criteria that we have before staff is able to recommend approval for a variance. There were in the ULDC chapter 11, section 110203, it states that all the criteria must be met in order for staff to recommend approval. There were some criteria that were not met. Criteria 5 mentions any special circumstances. Rather, these special circumstance is not a result of the actions of the applicant. In this particular case, transitioning a single-family residence into a campground would be a circumstance caused by the applicant. The planning staff felt that wanting to maintain the trees on the opposite end of the driveway, the south side of the driveway, is not an appropriate reasoning for requesting a variance. Requesting a variance is to allow for properties to be used in terms of, let's say the property doesn't meet setback requirements. A variance may be applied for that purpose, to reduce that setback. And so some of the criteria that we have were not met. At least staff did not feel that that criteria is met.
That's sufficient. Thank you, Kenta.
Okay. Any additional questions for staff? Okay, if not, we'd like to call the case, please.
VR 2001, Chantel Reed of McDonough, Georgia, requests a variance from development standards for property located at 540 Chambers Road in Lot 173 of the 6th District. The property consists of 7.08 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a reduction of the driveway requirements in District 2.
Okay, we've heard the case. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the board agrees with staff recommendation denial of VR 2001.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Can you read that back to me, Mr. Toussaint?
Yes, sir. So the motion was made by Ms. King, second by Mr. Lisher. The vote, I could see 4 hands. Mr. Pete, I couldn't see if you raised your hand or not. And I didn't see look, he's frozen. Oh, there you go.
Pete, did you hear?
Okay, so 5-0.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, call the next case, please.
Okay, give me 1 second, Stacy, before you do that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna take them out and then put in the next set here.
Yes, sir. Just let me know.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Moy, do we have anybody else other than the contractor? Oh, sorry.
70914, sorry, unmute myself.
Okay.
770-914-5066.
It has Charles's iPhone. Is that you, Mr. Charles?
Yes, sir.
Okay, awesome. So that's it. Anyone else in the waiting room? Brent?
I don't believe so. Vicky, are you on?
No.
Okay. What's Mike's number? One more.
I think it's 770-872-3667 is the one now.
Can you? Toussaint?
Yeah.
Miss Cox is on, and I believe that Mike Cox is on the phone also.
Okay.
His number 770, what Vicky is 872 what? 3667. Do you see that one?
No, sir. 5066 and a 205 number, area code.
Okay, we're not seeing that one, Vicky. We're just going to proceed and.
Okay, Stacey, if you'll go ahead and call, are you ready to sign?
Yes, sir.
Okay, call the case, Stacey.
VR 2002, Michael Cox of Macon, Georgia, requests a variance from development standards for property located at 28 Crumbly Road and 2228
Turn the volume off your other one.
5 North in land lots 6 and 7 of the 7th District. The property consists of 3.0 plus or minus acres and the request is for relief from the Highway Corridor Overlay District standards. This is District 4, and the staff report is presented by Mr. Kenta Lanham, Planner 1.
Good evening, once again, Chair and board members. The variance request in front of you is for property located at 2228 Highway 155 North and 28 Crumbly Road, as highlighted on the aerial map in your exhibit books. The properties are zoned C1, neighborhood commercial. The applicant is proposing to transition the 28 Crumbly Road property from a single family residence into a commercial property that will stretch into the 2228 Highway 154, Highway 155 North property. The 2228 Highway 155 North property has an existing commercial development. The proposed commercial development will be required to meet the Highway Corridor Overlay District standards. Here is the site plan showing the 28 Crumbly Road property and a portion of the 155 North property. Chapter 4, Section 40506H of the ULDC establishes the architectural standards for commercial properties within the overlay district. This section also establishes the permitted materials for commercial buildings in the overlay district. The applicant is requesting relief from the materials requirement of the Highway Corridor Overlay District. The applicant has submitted elevations detailing the materials to be used for the proposed commercial structure. Such materials include painted cement fiberboard siding, which is this green or gray color. Under the architectural standards for the Highway Corridor Overlay District, this material, cement fiberboard siding, is only allowed for residential buildings. Given this information, staff recommends denial for the variance request. And I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Does the board have questions for staff?
Yes, I have a question.
Mr. Richard.
In looking at the maps prepared by the staff for this report, there's a substantial amount of area that's either zoned and or developed for commercial use in the vicinity of Crumbly Road and Highway 155, and also East Lake Road. To your knowledge, has there been any similar request granted for some deviation against the materials standards for the highway area or the highway district in this area?
No variance requests immediately come to mind. Many of these properties were established before the Highway Corridor Overlay District was adopted into our ULDC. I would ask for our Chief Planner, Stacy Jordan, for his input if there were any recent requests that he can think of.
Yes, Mr. Risher, I am not aware of any variances that have been approved for building materials in this area or in the area at 155 and East Lake. It is typical for a developer to request an administrative waiver to allow for the sidewalks and other transportation improvements to go in the public right of way, but I do not recall any variances that have been given for building materials in this area.
Okay, I'm sure that some of these commercially zoned areas have already been developed, but I would I would think that there's still a large amount of land that, that is yet to be developed. And would that land be subject to the highway corridor, standards if it's zoned commercial?
Yes, sir. If the subject property in question is located within the boundaries of the overlay district, then yes, it would be held to the same standards.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions for our staff? If there is no additional question, we'd like the applicant to come forward, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Brent Moy. I'm with Land Engineering and Development. I'm the civil engineer. Toussaint, the applicant, Ms. Cox, is unable to hear on her phone. Is she active on your side?
What's the last 4 digits of her number?
5066.
No, sir.
You don't see the
No, sir.
914-5066?
No, sir.
Okay.
There's only one number left in there, and that's a 1373.
Okay. And then the contractor, Chuck Stroud, is here with me also. So as I stated, I'm here tonight and speak on behalf of the applicant. Having a little technical difficulty, we apologize for that. Vicky and Mike Cox are the owners of the Ace Hardware located at 1750 Highway 81 East. Chuck Stroud, I believe, is connected into the meeting. Chuck is the GC. He built the store at Highway 81, and he is building this facility we're proposing at Crumbly Road. I would like to take over and share my screen. Can I do that now?
Yeah, you should be able to just go ahead and do it.
Okay.
All right, try it now.
I'm in the process here.
Yeah.
So these are some photos I'm going to scroll through of the existing facility on Highway 81. This building was built in 2009. It was opened in 2010. At that time, the highway corridor overlay was not in place, but there were some architectural standards in the code. I do know from my meetings with the Coxes and with Mr. Stroud that they did spend a lot of time working on the facade of this building to create the look they were looking for, and come up with something they liked and met the codes at that time, and something that they were proud of. And the idea for the variance is they want to translate this same continuity between the buildings, their store on the north side of town, to match their store on the south side of town. And so that's really what we're asking for, to help them create, Ace is a brand of its own, but the Coxes want their store to be above and beyond that. And part of that is tied to, the effort they put into their building and making it look like it does. I do want to talk a little bit about the site itself. The project is proposing to construct that same building that will have some tenant space in it. The other overlay requirements, the multi-use paths, the site lighting, the street lighting, the other infrastructure, we have been able to meet that. We haven't been permitted, but in our preliminary meetings, we've addressed all of those items. There is residential subdivision to the rear of this property. We have included the buffer requirements to develop commercial property adjacent to. Kenta did a good job giving the details on it. There are two properties. 28 Crumbly Road is the existing residential house. 2228 Highway 155 is the automotive, that's a service thing, so I'm sorry, service center, tire store. We're taking only a portion of that parcel and we'll create the new 3 acres for this development. So really our request is for the Coxes to be allowed to take the building that they spent and put so much time and effort into on the south side of town and build a sister building that has the same look and appearance on the north side of town at this new location. You know, we ask for your support in that. Ms. Cox was planning to speak tonight on her behalf, but has been unable to get connected. So I'm gonna offer up to Chuck Stroud the opportunity to add anything if he would like to. Chuck, you will have to unmute yourself to do that, or you know, we would reserve our time to answer questions from the board or to respond to opposition.
Okay.
I need to unshare my screen now.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Mr. Toussaint, how much time does he have left?
Oh, you know what? I was actually, honestly, I wasn't, the timer was not on. I forgot.
Okay, that's no problem. That's no problem. All right, it's Mr. Stroud. Go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me?
We hear you.
Okay. Thank y'all for taking time to hear this review for the Cox. And I guess Brent described it pretty plainly. The existing facility, Mike and Vicky, important to them to kind of have a brand identity. From my conversation with the folks in Henry County and that area, the store has an excellent reputation. They do a really good job. And I think one of the main impetus for them is when you're driving in Henry County to shop, you're going to immediately recognize that that is their partner on the other side of the county. So, you know, like big corporations spend a lot of time and effort identifying and branding their facility. That's our goal here. I think you can see from the pictures that Brent provided, the facility is held up very well to be 10 years old, and the Cox do an excellent job of maintaining the facility. So I've read the rules for the overlay district, and obviously it does not allow for the use of cementuous siding, and it's going to be really difficult for us to get sort of the same appearance, obviously, without using those materials.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this or present? Does the board have questions for the applicant?
I have a question for Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Moore, this is Mr. Carmichael. My question is the exterior appearance of the proposed building. Wouldn't it be the same as the old building if you use the same paint?
I'm gonna ask Chuck to confirm this for me, but the issue is the prohibition of the cement fiber products in the overlay, which is the hardy plank siding on the building, the Nichiha that looks like cedar shakes on the building. I'm not sure what other of those items are actually the cement fiber board or cement products, but that's my understanding is it's an issue with those restrictions, and that is how they achieved the look they achieved on the existing building. Chuck, can you add to that?
Well, that if you see the building up close, if we used brick and painted the brick, it would be a substantially different appearance. And I think Mike and Vicky's idea is to try to not have a real industrial appearance. And I'd have to leave it up to somebody smarter than me to say if the painted brick would work. But I will say when we use that product, I don't think it was a function of cost. It was more of a function of the appearance that they were trying to achieve.
Any additional questions?
I have no further questions.
I have one question. That question, now, do you feel that the requirement is diminishing the appearance of it, or are you just adamant that it has to be the same as the other property?
Well, I think it will diminish the appearance, and it won't allow us to have a consistent look between the two facilities. Obviously, determining whether it diminishes the appearance is a subjective thing that I don't know that I can answer that specifically, but I do think we build all sorts of commercial buildings, and if we change the building to brick, it's going to be a totally different structure, and we're going to have to use some different materials, because if you notice, like the main entrance into the facility has the appearance of a cedar shake there. It looks like a cedar shake. I don't really know how we could achieve that look with any product that's allowed in the overlay district. I know we can have 10% of accent, but I don't know. I haven't done the math to see how that would impact us if that would allow us, enough room to do that out of an accent.
Okay. All right. Any additional questions? If there's no additional question, we'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition of this case.
And we had no emails and no one in the waiting room that feels to speak.
Okay. Does the board have additional questions for the applicant or staff? If there is no additional question, we can call the case, please.
VR 2002, Michael Cox of Georgia requests a variance from development standards for property located at 28 Crumbly Road and 2228 Highway 155 North in land lots 6 and 7 of the 7th district. The property consists of 3.0 plus or minus acres, and the request is for relief from Highway Corridor Overlay District standards in District 4.
Okay, we've heard the case. Do we have a motion?
I would like to make a motion, DeLander. I would like to make a motion on case VR-20-02 that we agree to accept staff's recommendation that the request be denied.
You have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
1, 2, 3. Show of hands.
See.
Okay, motion carries. Okay. Ms. King, will you take on the next case, please?
So real quick, Ms. DeLander. So,
okay, I'm sorry. Read that back, Mr. Toussaint.
Yes, sir. Now, Mr. Carmichael made the motion, Mr. Risher second, and the vote. I saw 4 hands. Ms. King, was your hand up? I couldn't see
It was not.
Okay.
Negative.
Right, so 4-0 and 1, I guess. All right.
All done there?
Yeah, let me park them back in the waiting room, and then I'll bring the next people in, okay?
Okay.
All right, so next case is Mr. Carson? Are you the only person for your case tonight?
No, we have Derek McCarty.
And then I'll bring the next people in, okay?
Derek McCarty, okay. Anyone else?
That's it for Copart.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, sir. Okay, I think that's it.
Great. Let's call the next case, please.
VR 2003, Buckley Carson of Dallas, Texas, requests a variance from development standards for property located at 761 Clark Drive in land lots 219 and 220.
Yes, sir.
Are you the only person
Property
for your
consists
case tonight?
No, there's Derek McCarty from LBYD.
plus or minus acres, and the request is for relief from the required physical
It's just Derek and myself.
infrastructure improvements in District 5. The staff report is presented by Stacy Jordan Rudisil, Chief Planner. And good evening, Mr. Chair and Ms. Vice Chair.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am in the process of sharing my screen. The property before you is the location of Copart Youth Auto Parts salvage operations. This property is zoned M2, and this property has been zoned industrial for this purpose since 1984. The zoning map shows that the property is in an area that's largely rural and residential, with residences in the immediate vicinity, but not in the immediate vicinity of commercial. The applicant's site plan shows approximately 1,500 linear feet of frontage around Clark Drive. The applicant is proposing to replace an aging office trailer with a new building in compliance with our highway corridor overlay district. And as you are aware, the overlay district requires a sidewalk as well as trees and pedestrian lights and curb and gutter along the street, which in this case will necessitate that the open grassy swell would be piped for stormwater. So this would necessitate a lot of the trees along the frontage operation to be removed, with waiting and for the improvements to be placed. And staff has noted that for the sidewalks and improvements to be placed, it is not likely that these improvements will be utilized to a very great degree because this operation is closed to the public. And also, there's nowhere in the immediate vicinity to walk. Staff has noted in the text of the overlay district that there is a provision for an alternate form of improvement guarantee. In other words, the ordinance allows for a form of guarantee that would be approved by the county, which would implement the intent of the overlay district. So, considering the fact that it may be possible for this set of improvements to be banked, much like a sidewalk bank, we approached the applicant to see if there would be any interest. The applicant has responded with the breakdown of the frontage improvements that should be on the screen at this time. So with all the clearing, grading, earthwork, the concrete for the sidewalks, the street lamps and so forth, we're looking at a figure in excess of $729,000. So the applicant is proposing a variance to be able to take advantage of this alternate improvement guarantee that is mentioned in the ordinance. So staff has considered the applicant's request. We considered the fact that the operation is closed to the public. And we've considered the fact that there are no attractions in the immediate vicinity to which to walk. And so therefore, we are recommending approval of a very specific variance. And it's on the screen, and I'd be happy to read it if you please, but the gist of it is that this amount would be banked with the county. The county board of commissioners would have complete control over the use of the funds. We're recommending that they be limited to transportation or sidewalk improvements. And we are additionally recommending that a right turn lane and acceleration taper be constructed on the site, because we have noticed that there may be an issue with tracking of the trucks bringing in the vehicles due to the fact that the facility is closed to the public. So with that, I'd be pleased to answer questions.
Yeah, Stacey.
Go ahead.
Stacey, I have a question. I have a question for you. And for some reason, your voice is kind of going out at different times. However, the question that I have is that you're saying that it's closed to the public. Now, the site itself is closed to the public, but this is actually the sidewalk would be along Clark Drive, correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay. Now, Clark Drive is a very narrow street based on this. So, and I understand that they was granted an administrative waiver at some point.
Yes, sir. That's correct. The administrative waiver was a couple of different parts. So for example, the administrative waiver waived away the requirement for sidewalk improvements along Cook Drive as well as Flakes Mill, because while the location has frontage, they do not have access. Also, the administrative waiver was for the building materials for the new structure. Because this site is completely gated, there is no public accommodation, and the building should not be able to be seen from the right of way due to the buffering as well as the screening fence.
Okay. I understand in terms of that portion of the waiver. My next question is, why can't we make the improvements opposed to requesting the waiver?
Yes, sir. I can tell you that the applicant, and the applicant can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is the applicant is willing to make the improvements, but staff has, we've noticed the possibility that these funds may be better used in a different place. So we wanted to bring this before you for your consideration to see if you would agree. And also, we also want to use this as somewhat of a pilot to see if sidewalk banking in general may be something that in the future we want to include in our ULDC.
Okay. Now, and I have to go to give this comment on it. Based on the width of Clark Drive and the size of vehicles that's actually coming into that location, I would definitely say sidewalks or should be mandatory at this point, and actually should be there. But we will, I don't have any additional questions for staff, but we'll talk to the applicant.
Any other board members have any questions for staff, for Stacey?
I have one question of Stacey. What in the event the cost of the sidewalks and associated improvements exceed $729,000.
So the way that our recommendation is written is very specific to this figure. I can tell you that our Henry County Department of Transportation has taken a look at these figures and they are good with these figures. In other words, we have confidence that these are real numbers and that they are not in any way a low estimation.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
Yes, I have a question. Is it the intent that that these banked funds, if it's approved, is the intent to focus these funds for improvements within the general Fairview area, or would this be used countywide?
Mr. Risher, I can tell you that our staff recommendation does not address that. What it says is that the Board of Commissioners will be able to use these funds for transportation and sidewalk improvements, but we leave it up to the Board of Commissioners to decide where and when these funds could be used. But we wanted to specify in our recommendation that these funds could be used all together. They could be spread out. They could be used for matching funds to leverage grants. Perhaps they could be used as grants themselves if certain non-governmental organizations wish to apply. So we wanted to make it as broad as possible for the Board of Commissioners.
All right, so they could possibly use these funds to support or leverage other projects such as roads or neighborhood improvements.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for staff? All right, then if not, we'll invite the applicant to join in here.
Well,
And
hey,
any
this is,
Go
hello,
ahead.
this is Derek McCarty. This is Derek McCarty with LBYD Engineers. I'm the project manager for the civil engineering firm on this. So I'd be the one responsible for getting you the plans and stuff, regardless of how this goes. Buck Carson, who was a property manager for Copart for all the sites in Georgia, is also on the phone. And he's probably muted at this time. But basically, Stacy has already covered almost everything in my notes that I wanted to bring up. It just came up. The reason this we're applying for this variance is, we've seen the overlay districts. We understand the requirements. We understand the reason for the requirements. And we do understand that these streetscapes and these sidewalks and the pedestrian walkways do provide a significant value to communities. And so we do these a lot of places. So we're not arguing the value of any of that, but we agree with that. It's just that when we were looking at it, and literally we were just looking at the property on Google Earth, and we just said, there's no sidewalk on either end of this. There's no connectivity. Nobody would use this because there's no way, really convenient way to get here or anywhere to go from here. It's just this, 1,500 foot of sidewalk that would be right along Clark Drive. And I literally zoomed out and saw that, I got the idea, and I was talking to Stacy at the time about, hey, there's a park right near here. I think it's just about a half a mile away from our property. And the idea was, this is a great thing. The funding for this is a great thing. We just felt that there would probably be a better place to spend the funds than right here on Clark Drive. And we had, and then we went through the formal process of requesting this. Stacy and I also met with a gentleman from the County Department of Transportation about his concerns. And as Mr. DeLander was noting, and I apologize if I mispronounced your name, sir, he did bring up the concerns about the total width of the road and the large trucks being on here. And what he says it's fine, apply for this. This is a good idea to apply for this variant, but we need to be able to get the trucks off the road a little faster. So even if the variance was allowed, we would still require this turn lane to be put in just to provide that additional stacking of vehicles off the main travel way. And we concur with that. So we appreciate the code here. It's a very good thing. We don't deny that it is of extreme value. Obviously, we do have something to gain for this. I don't want to paint it all rosy. The disruption of work, right there on Clark Drive, during construction would be a challenge for us. So I don't want to pretend like, we're just being first with the town or anything. We don't want the challenge of construction during operations. That is part of it. But also, it really seems to us that this would be funds that are better used for places that already do have some connectivity, some sidewalks or something in places where they would be utilized, and so that's why we brought this, and we hope you will consider it. But either way, we're going to do what's in the best interest of Ellenwood and Henry County, and we do appreciate your time.
Any questions for the applicant?
Yes, I have a question. I guess my biggest concern is the width of that road and people walking along there with the size of trucks that's actually traveling that road. And that traffic is beginning to pick up even more. The concern is I guess would be, have we considered I know that possibly the funds could be used in better places. However, the safety of it is the biggest concern there. So have you guys factored that in at all, or?
Well, yes, sir. Am I unmuted? Yes, sir. And now I cannot comment on all the pedestrian traffic. I have only been to this site personally one time, and on that one incident, on that one time, I didn't notice pedestrians, but that was just a snapshot. One thing that we thought of, but we did not believe that would even be considered just because of the nature of the code and the variances. One of the ideas we had was, well, what about if we just widen the road, but didn't put on the pedestrian light and landscape? Basically we're going to cut down 1,500 foot of trees to put a sidewalk to plant back 1,500 foot of trees. So it's widening the road is part of the challenge, but there's a lot of things that go with widening of the road. Obviously we see it as more complicated than just a road widening project.
I understand, but now along with what's going on, will your facility, is it increasing in size and road traffic?
No, sir. It is all that is happening is the building that was placed there, the original building, it was basically an office trailer. It's about a 3,000 square foot office trailer. And what they're wanting to do is just put a permanent building there. As you know, those mobile offices and all do require a lot of upkeep, and it's just time to put a permanent structure there. So it's not because it's expanding, even though it will be a larger building. I mean, they'll have more offices, but if you notice in our on the actual plan, we're already utilizing all the property for storage, so we can't actually park more vehicles there.
Okay, I don't have anything else, Susan.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? No more questions for the applicant. All right. We've got 10 minutes for anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this case. Is anyone waiting in the wings for that?
I believe I heard once from Mr. Carr. I see he's in the window. I'm not sure if he's speaking in opposition or not. Do you see
No,
him?
sir. This is Buck Carson with Copart. I'm supporting the application with Derek McCarty.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yep, you'll get a chance. No one to speak in opposition?
Oh, man.
So, right, okay, so we'll have 10 minutes for anyone who would like to speak in favor of the case. Mr. Carson.
No, ma'am. I appreciate the opportunity. Derek is just a representative for Copart. He's our civil engineer on the project. I work for Copart, so just standing in and want to let him take the lead on this.
Understood. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for staff or the applicant on this case?
Stacy, in terms of the size of building that they're proposing to construct there, have you guys took a look at that?
Mr. Chair, we have had a due diligence meeting with the applicant, and the gist of that meeting was that it would trigger highway corridor. And so that's generally where we are right here.
Okay.
The very fact that they're building a new building triggers the overlay. It's not necessarily the size.
Okay, all right.
Any additional questions, either staff or the applicant? I'm not hearing any, so let's go ahead and call the case, please.
BR 2003 Buckley Carson of Dallas, Texas requests a variance from development standards for property located at 761 Clark Drive in land lots 219 and 220 of the 12th district. The property consists of 76.73 plus or minus acres, and the request is for relief from the required physical off-site infrastructure improvements in District 5.
Do I have a motion, please?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion on BR 20-03 that we go against staff recommendation to deny this request.
Do I have a second? No second? Can't do anything with this. Tucson, I'll ask for your assistance on this. I don't get a second. We can't go forward with this, correct?
Correct. I think that is correct. So we have to,
Madam
Stacy?
You have to get another motion.
Yes.
Hold on. What was the motion? Some of the stuff is being blurred.
Yeah. The motion was
Can we
made
go
to
back
deny.
What was the motion? Okay.
The motion was made to deny, I believe.
Okay. All right.
That's correct.
all right, what did you say, Stacy? I didn't hear.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, if we could please just call for a different motion.
Right.
All right. Do I have a motion, a different motion?
I would
Just like that?
Make a motion to support staff recommendation.
All right, could you repeat that, Mr. Risher?
I said, I would like to make a motion to support the staff recommendation for the banked funds.
Is there a second?
I second motion.
All in favor?
Now let's have a discussion.
Have a discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Discussion, sorry.
I would like to emphasize that this is the overlay district, and we are allowing variances on the overlay district and basing it on funds that we don't actually know the cost of. We don't know what it costs to build sidewalks, and the overlay district, there's a lot of time that actually went into these issues. So when we making these variants and deciding that we are going against overlay districts in terms of variance, and this is possibly a true safety hazard. We are looking at a road that's traveling some very large trucks, and sidewalk is needed. So for even if funds was used to put somewhere else, I think it would be a discredit to that area with the needing of sidewalk. So that's where I stand with that.
All right, so Mr. Risher, you made a motion to support staff recommendation. And I believe Mr. Carmichael, you did second that.
Yes.
I'm based on what DeLander said, I'm wondering if Mr. Risher would like to modify his motion at all?
Well, I would leave it to the discretion of the commissioners, but I would say that a certain amount of funds should go towards Clark Road, Clark Drive.
All right, is that sufficient for you, DeLander? Are you looking for more than that?
Well, no, simply because we don't know the cost of building those sidewalks. It's gonna, if we have an estimate of 700,000, that 700,000 need to go towards Clark Drive, or just put the sidewalk in. It's a lot simpler if it's you know, go ahead and put the sidewalk in there. Just meet the requirements of the overlay.
Understood. Mr. Risher, motion to support staff recommendation to approve this request. I have a second from Mr. Carmichael. All in favor?
I still want to, Pete, can you hear me?
Yes?
Okay, are we still in discussion phase?
Oh.
Are we still in discussion?
Maybe, we can be. We can still continue to discuss. Is there something further that does need to be discussed?
Well, I guess the thing is everybody clear on what is going on? Because I hear some passion on one side. Is there, and I know we already have a motion out there, is there a possibility that we get some more information, but until then we table this? So that's the only discussion I got.
I'm not sure what to do with that motion that's standing out there with the second then.
Okay, got it.
Some would want to do that, so I'm not quite sure how to navigate backwards now.
Okay, well, I would be willing to withdraw my motion.
Okay.
Do we need to withdraw my second?
Better, well, at least we're swimming and not sinking yet. We're getting there. All right, so I have the motion to support staff recommendation withdrawn, followed by the second withdrawn. And so let's start over. Do we need any further discussion? No.
Oh, I have a question.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The variance does not require us to amend or modify the requirements of the overlay district. It seems like the request is simply a banking of money, of funds, and don't touch on the question as to the overlay district requirements at all.
Well, the overlay district is requiring the sidewalk.
Well, that was the purpose of my first question, as to meet the improvements in the area. What in the event they exceed $729,000?
Exactly. You're exactly right. So why not go ahead and put in the sidewalk? We don't know what it's going to cost.
Okay.
All right, any other discussion? Gentlemen?
Got a hand up. I make a motion.
Sorry.
Make a motion that we table this case until we get further information.
Yeah. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Yes.
Motion carries. Good grief. Thank you.
All right. Let's call the next case, please.
Okay, one second.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Pete made the motion, Mr. Risher second, and the vote was for Ms. King. Did you raise your hand?
I did not. I did not.
So 4-0-1. All right.
Your vote was what, Mr. Tristan?
4-0 and 1 abstention.
Okay.
I forgot to vote, actually.
1, 2, 3. You actually you voted for Ms. King?
All right, so let me.
I forgot to vote, actually.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to get out of the weeds.
Back to the waiting room.
Navigate.
Pull up the last group here. Let's see who we got here. Steve Moore. Yeah. All right. Steve, quick question. Who else do you have with you tonight?
The applicant, Drew Camp,
Yeah,
may be here. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's here.
Yeah, there he is.
Who else?
That's it.
That's it? Okay. All right.
Are we ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, let's call the case B0204.
BR 2004, the Reservoir Group of Locust Grove, Georgia, requests a variance from development standards for property located at 46 Upchurch Road in land lot 174 of the 7th district. The property consists of 28.2 plus or minus acres, and the request is for relief from highway corridor overlay district standards in District 3. Staff report is presented by Stacy Jordan Rudisill, Chief Planner. And good evening, Mr. Chair.
Good evening.
And board members, I am sharing my screen. And so the property before you is the northeast corner of the intersection of State Route 81 East and Upchurch Road. And so this property at this point is one parcel, including the frontage along State Route 81. But I just want to be clear that the applicant's request is for relief from the development standard requirement for the overlay district just for the portion that is proposed for residential development, and the frontage along Highway 81 East is reserved for future use, which is likely to be some sort of commercial use, but it's really not the subject of the applicant's request. So from the zoning map, you can see that this area is largely rural, residential, agricultural, with several commercial properties along Highway 81 East. So the northwest corner is already developed for a gas station. The property immediately to the south of the intersection of Highway 81 and Upchurch Road is already developed for a car lot. You've got the property to the east of the subject property that is developed for automotive repair and so forth. So the area is a mixture of commercial and residential uses. The applicant's site plan, as shown on the screen, shows the frontage along be reserved, but it's also showing an RA subdivision with 7 lots. And these 7 lots are 2-acre minimums and so forth. They actually do meet a county-wide standard, but this entire parcel is within the overlay district. And the overlay district has several requirements that this property does not meet. In addition to overlay standards that the property is not meeting, such as our sidewalk requirements, our pedestrian light requirements, our street tree requirements, as well as curb and gutter and piping, ditch sections and so forth. The overlay district has standards that are specific to residential development because the overlay district applies to both residential development and commercial development. One of the standards for residential development is that it have internal streets. And this proposed development does not have internal streets. One of the development standards that is a county-wide standard that is not being met is the standard regarding flag lots. Flag lots are limited to 15% of the development, and because there are so few developments, the very fact that there is one flag lot exceeds this limitation. So the flag lot limitation is a part of the applicant's development, variance request. The site plan that's on your screen at this time is an alternate site plan, which is an R2 site plan, which would require a rezoning. So we're looking at 21 R2 lots, should it be approved, versus an RA subdivision for 7 lots. So pending approval, these are the two alternate developments that the county could choose between. I'd like to note at this time that the future land use map does call for a low density residential development. And so an R2 would be an appropriate, or let me rather say that it would be supported by our future land use map. So to summarize, the variances that are required for the applicant to develop as proposed is to eliminate the overlay standard for internal street, for a 20-foot landscape strip along Highway 81, along Upchurch Road, to eliminate the sidewalk, pedestrian light, and street tree requirement, also to eliminate the overlay requirement for a walkway between the front door of the house and the sidewalk, and then also to eliminate the flag lot limitation, which is a county-wide standard. And so I'd be pleased to answer questions.
Okay. Does the board have questions for staff? Okay. All right, if no questions, we'd like the applicant to speak for.
Mr. Chair, I think that Mr. Risher is.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, all right, go ahead, Mr. Risher. He's on mute, Mr. Toussaint.
Okay.
Can you hear him?
All right, just a brief question for Stacy or for staff, is that this, track, let me just make clear that it is 28.2 acres, but all that's involved, for the action tonight, it is about 21 acres with 7 lots, and that the balance of the property would be asked for a commercial zoning at some future time. And it is my understanding that the applicants, as far as the commercial is concerned, their intent is to comply with all aspects or all requirements of the overlay district. Is that your understanding?
Yes, sir, Mr. Risher. And let me take this moment to say that the entire parcel was submitted as our subject property, but my understanding is largely your understanding that the variance request is just for the residential portion. Staff is recommending denial of this request, but in the case that it's the pleasure of the zoning board to grant approval for any one of these variances, I would ask that you make it a part of your motion to exclude the portions shown on the site plan for future development, because it's not the intent of the applicant to request variances for this portion.
Yes, so we're speaking only of the residential portion this evening.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions for staff? Okay. If there is no additional question for staff, we'd like the applicant to come forward. You have 10 minutes to present this case, along with 10 minutes for anyone speaking in favor.
Yes, sir. Thank you and good evening. I'm Steve Moore of Moore Bass Consulting, 1350 Keys Ferry Court. McDonough, Georgia, representing these variance requests. It's okay, I'm gonna share my screen and I can go through some a review of what we're talking about. Hopefully you can see that. I think it says subject property. So that shaded area does represent the portion of the property that is subject to this request. And I believe, Stacy, that the survey that we submitted had separated as tract 1 and tract 2. So it should be very easy to delineate the boundaries of the subject property if these variances get approved. So, but as Stacy mentioned, we're at the pin corner of Upchurch Road and Georgia Highway 81. We have not filed any plan for this property here. In fact, the applicant I think the plan is that would remain with the current owner. And if we're successful at our variance requests, this portion would be subdivided out and developed independent of this commercial and or this future commercial, and it would come through some zoning change in the future. So what we are proposing is 7 residential lots ranging from 2.3 to 6.5 acres. And again, with that commercial piece being out. The way we got here was we started with this plan. The initial concept was, hey, you know, what's our future land use map designation? What's the best zoning we could get? And this was the approach that we came up with. We had some meetings with several folks, including the district commissioner, and we, after just kind of discussing this project and potential issues with traffic and recognizing that we have some established neighborhoods and kind of rural character along Upchurch Road, we went back to the drawing boards and we converted this 21 lot traditional residential layout into what you've seen already this evening, but 7 lots. These lots, again, they're 175 feet wide, and the plan is for them to have driveway cuts directly to Upchurch Road, but it's very consistent and similar with what's immediately across the street. They would basically front each other. And in this one large lot, there's a small little branch stream here that separates this back portion of the lot. And we felt like that lot, especially this property here, was zoned commercial sometime back, that it probably made sense for that lot to have a little bit more acreage and a little more privacy there. So that's kind of the genesis and basis behind this layout. But in order to meet the applicant's vision for this property, I very quickly identified that there were several variances that needed, and I'm going to try to go through and explain and justify why we think that those are appropriate. The first one was to allow the flag lot. As Stacy mentioned, the ordinance limits 5% of the total number of lots as flag lots. And when you only have 7 lots, one lot is 14%. And so that's our simple request. It's a 60-foot wide flagged access. All you'll see as you're driving down the road is a driveway. And then again, this lot is I think almost 6.5 acre lot back there. But it's just a technicality that we're stuck in based on the few number of lots that we're proposing. Another variance, these may not be in the same exact order as Stacy's report, but as part of the highway overlay, there is a requirement to basically do what the layout we showed you earlier with the R2. Because of its location in the overlay, there's a requirement that you provide internal access into the subdivision. So that's obviously not conducive for the vision that we have here. Another variance is there is a requirement, as Stacy mentioned, to provide a walkway from the front of the building to a sidewalk that's in the street. I can't help but believe there was not that specific part of the ordinance is under the assumption that this is a commercial project. There's I don't think that really, I think that highway overlay is largely geared towards commercial and retail and office type developments. And I think, again, we're caught in a slight technicality based on the development program that we're proposing for this project. So we are requesting relief from that particular requirement to provide the sidewalk out to Upchurch Road at every lot. And then there's and I know everyone's familiar with this because it's discussed a good bit, but there is a requirement based on the classification of Upchurch Road for an 8-foot wide sidewalk or multi-use path with a landscape strip and pedestrian lighting to run along the perimeter of Upchurch Road. There is no sidewalks on Upchurch Road or 81 in that area. And frankly, this is a section of town where we believe the rural character is appreciated. There's not a lot of heavy lighting other than maybe what's at the intersection where the gas station is now. But as you travel down Upchurch Road, this would look out of character, at least to our belief, based on this development program, to have these lights that provide continuous lighting in all dark hours lit up. We think it just kind of goes against what we're going for, which is this rural area of the county where it's still close enough to town, but we can offer big lots, and it's very compatible with what's all around us, at least along Upchurch Road. And so we feel like that's an area that we would like for that to be removed. Again, we aren't talking about anything as it relates to that section of the road. That property would remain unless somebody in the future comes and requests another variance. But the intent is that property would one day probably be commercial. It's my belief that the highway overlay is really geared more towards that type of project, not as you move away from the highway and down these side streets where you're, inviting, light pollution and those types of things that really is kind of going against what's already there. And then this goes along with the internal street requirement, but it's technicality again, that there's a requirement to front face lots on new streets. And again, just the technicality we have to work through with our request. So this is the kind of a after picture. And I think it tells a good story of very compatible with what's surrounding us. I think the neighbors in Joyner Estates would be very appreciative of this approach versus an R2 with 21 lots. I think it's a much more environmentally sound development. I think it's going to just play well with the neighbors and with the surrounding area. And with that, I'll answer any questions you have. Mr. Camp is on the phone as well, or on the call. And he's certainly available to answer questions as well.
Okay. All right. Does the board have questions for the applicant?
Yes, I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
And Toussaint, I'm for some reason can't unshare my screen. So if you want to, I don't know if you're still seeing my shared screen or not, but if you can take over and do that, for some reason, there you go. You got it.
Okay, yes, I have a couple of questions. Steve, could you show again the site plan and indicate the physical conditions of this property, which would seem to be more appropriate for a low density type of layout?
Yes, sir. So
I think there's some wetland issues.
There's a small creek right here. And there is obviously buffers and setbacks that are required by the county and by the state, which is represented there. In addition, there's soil conditions because this is on septic and there is no sewer available or in the near proximity to it. There's an area that kind of runs this area in here that is basically soils that are unsuitable for septic systems. And so that started to really create a natural divide separating, this last lot here from the rest, which is the basis behind the layout and the reason for the flagged lot.
Yeah, and I think that that all of the frontage along Upchurch Road, which was, I think it was improved from about a 15-foot wide road to the standard 22-foot, probably about 15 years ago, associated with the construction of Fire Station 10. But I believe that from Highway 81 on up until you reach Joyner Estates subdivision, it's pretty much all residential agricultural lots, I believe.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can see this label covers it up, but you can see these large lots that run the length here, and all of these lots that are, acre plus lots that front Upchurch Road.
Okay, that's all I had.
We think this is just going to be a high-end retreat area in very close proximity to town with large lots. It's a very unique project. We're excited about it. We think it's going to be something that's going to be highly sought after with residents and future residents.
Okay, maybe one last question. I guess concerning the flag lots, I think in our ordinance that that a flag has to be 60 foot wide. What would be the reduction, for the flag that would reach the lot on the back side or the east side of the property?
We're proposing it to be 60 feet wide.
Oh, okay. So that would meet the standard, I believe. Is that correct? Correct.
The issue, I believe, is that there is a limitation of no more than 5% of the lots that can be.
That's right.
Yeah, and so based on the small number of lots, we exceed that minimum or maximum.
Okay. Any additional questions for the applicant? Okay. Based on my clock, I have about 3 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in favor of this case. Okay, we would like to allot 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. Did you have anyone in queue to sign? I think you're muted.
Yeah. So no one emailed, nor did they respond in the chat.
Okay, all right. Does the board have any additional questions for the applicant or staff? If not, we would like to call case number VR 2004.
VR 2004, the Reservoir Group of Locust Grove, Georgia, requests a variance from development standards for property located at 36 Upchurch Road in land lot 174 of the 7th district. The property consists of 28.2 plus minus acres, and the request is for relief from Highway Corridor Overlay District standards in District 3.
Okay, we've heard the case. Do we have a motion?
Yes, I would like to make a four-part motion just to cover all of the items that were addressed. And this applies to the 21 plus or minus acres that would be residential. First would be a variance from section 404.04F, and that would be to grant a variance concerning the flag lot issue. All right, second would be a variance from section 4.05.04A1B. That would be to eliminate the walkway connections and sidewalks. Number 3 would be section 4.05.05A1. And that's concerning eliminating sidewalks and pedestrian lights and street trees. And finally, number 4 would be section 4.05.06 B4. That would be to eliminate the residential lot, standards such as internal streets required and a 20-foot landscape strip along the roadway.
Okay, Mr. Rich, I'm not sure now. I understand your motion. Are you making a motion that we go with county recommendation or?
No, my motion would be to approve the variances as requested. And there's 4 variances that apply.
Okay, all right. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Okay, yeah, you mentioned 4 things, Jim.
Yes.
Can you cover that again?
All right, that would be, all right, well, I guess I'm referring to the sections that are in the staff report.
Okay, all right, got it.
Okay.
So everything that's documented in the staff report, that's what you just regurgitated?
That's all the things that were addressed by staff, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Mr. Beam, and I'm trying to, there you go.
Yeah. Do we need to put in there that it is on the 21 acres, not on the full size of the property?
Yes, that's what I mentioned earlier, that it would be for the 21 plus or minus acres that would be residential.
Okay.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? 1, 2, 3. I'm showing 3 hands.
Yes, sir.
1, 2, 3.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All opposed?
See, 1 hand.
Okay, motion, looks like the motion carried. Is that what you saw, Mr. Toussaint?
Yes, sir. I saw 3, 4, and 1 against. Mr. Pete, were you voting?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, sir. I can hear you. I didn't see your hand.
Okay, going with recommending, I'm sorry.
Okay, so that's 4, 1.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Okay. Okay, well, that concludes our cases for today. Make a motion to adjourn.
A second.
Okay, motion to adjourn. Meeting's adjourned.
All right, thank you, Art.
Thank you.
Thank you. We survived it.
To begin that and understand, and have already heard from Mr. Mike Gassis. So we welcome you both today for that presentation. So Mr. Cooper, you may begin it.
Thank you, Madam Board Chair and Madam Vice Chair and distinguished board members. I today will be presenting to you a resolution of Henry County Board of Commissioners to approve and adopt the Henry County Employee Benefit and Medical Insurance Plans for 2020 and 2021. At the conclusion of my presentation, if there's any questions, myself, along with Mr. Gassis of the Gassis Insurance Group, Mr. Chris Clark, and Mr. James Ford, of Epic Insurance and Consultants will answer those questions collectively. The resolution reads, whereas the Henry County Employee Benefit and Medical Insurance Plan for its employees, pre-65-year-old retirees and their families shall be renewed for the coverage plan year effective June 1st, 2020 through May 31st, 2021. And whereas county staff consisting of representatives from Human Resources, Budget, Finance, and the County Manager's Office reviewed renewals from Kaiser and Cigna, and whereas Cigna negotiated final medical renewal reflecting
the wing, please?
a
We go to the
6.0
send the wings.
a 6.48% increase